Hey guys, it's Leon, and today let's talk about electric skateboards. And now that I've got my electric skateboard for over a year, I have some opinions. So let me first introduce you guys to my electric skateboard. This board is made by a company called TeamGee. It's not a very popular company, but this board, it's cheap. And it can go 10 kilometers and can go pretty fast. So that's why I got this board. And despite it being on the cheap end, I was still really happy that I got this board. It's by far like one of my best purchases ever. So for me, at least, before I got this electric skateboard, I have some concerns. But then after I got my electric skateboards, I discovered more things to worry about. So let's just go through them one by one. I think the biggest one is range anxiety. This is the anxiety that your range is not far enough. But then after I got the skateboard, I discovered that when the battery dies, it just becomes a regular skateboard. And if you're skating on an electric skateboard, you probably should know how to push. So you probably should know the fundamentals of how to ride a skateboard. So when it dies, you can still ride it as usual. Although this board is rated only for 10 kilometers, I have pushed it over 15 kilometers without breaking a sweat. The trick here is to push until you are exhausted and then let the board do its work. And then when you have catched up with your breath, you push again. Also, try not to use the motor when you are accelerating from standstill because that consumes a lot of battery and you can easily just push your way through acceleration and then just use the board to cruise. So if you're getting an electric skateboard in particular, range anxiety is not that big of a deal. As long as you got like a decent range and as long as you're not going too far, you can still make your way home without carrying your board. The second concern I had before getting this is skateboards? Really? This is definitely like on the novelty side, right? You're riding a skateboard down the street while others are on their bikes or on their little scooters. It feels a little risky to ride a skateboard because you're not holding on to anything. But on the other hand, if you compare a skateboard to a bike, when a bike crashes, you can easily get hurt by tangling your feet into the wires or something, and then it's a whole disaster. But on a skateboard, you can just jump off. If you learn how to fall, it's not that big of a deal, but I think the risk is in the rider, not in the vehicle itself. So if you ride safely, responsibly, if you don't push the speed limits too much, I think you'll be fine. The last concern I had is electric skateboards are expensive, and that's not true. So electric skateboards in terms of price is actually comparable to something like a bike. I got my board for around 2,000 RMB. That's about this amount of US dollars. This is like one of the cheapest electric longboards that I found. The only thing you have to invest into your board after you got it is if you have ridden it past, I think 100 kilometers, you have to replace the wheel and ideally the bearings as well. That's pretty much it. The maintenance fee is really low. Of course, you can get really expensive with electric skateboards. Like for example, you can get the X-Way, and that's pretty expensive, but that's also true for bikes. You know, you get a bike for dirt cheap, but you can also get like a really expensive bike that's more expensive than a car. And I have at least ridden this board for 100 kilometers. So if you divide that, that's about 2 RMB per kilometer. Just to put that into perspective, if you hail a ride like taxi or Uber, that's around 6 RMB per kilometer. Those are about the concerns I had before getting the board, and after getting the board, there are a few annoyances that came up. But first, let's hear what Cathy has to say about her electric skateboard.
Okay, so what do I like about skateboard is because it's cool. When you like ride on the skateboard, you feel free, feel like you're like traveling through the city without walking, without using my legs. Lazy people like me, I just love that I feel like I'm like a bird. And also Leon loves that, and it's the thing that makes him happy. That's the thing we can do together, and I can make him happy, and we both can have fun. Things I don't like about skateboard is that it's so heavy, so freaking heavy. When I'm walking on the street, I have to carry it. It's just so inconvenient because if I'm carrying multiple things, the skateboard is an extra burden, and I hate that, especially when I travel far. I have to ride on a metro. It's just weird, and it's so heavy. It's too heavy for me to walk freely. The thing is, I love the feeling when I'm on the skateboard, but when I have to take it on my hand, it's just not good. It's not a pleasant experience. And in China, especially in Shanghai, there's not a lot of places you can actually skateboard. On the street, there's a lot of cars, and if you ride on the street, some police officer will catch you. And I love the concept of skateboarding, but where I am right now, my body condition doesn't allow me to skateboard freely. So yeah, that's my whole opinion. Okay, so bye.
So Cathy mentioned that electric skateboards, they are really, really fun to ride. And I think that's one of the reasons that we all wanted to ride this. But the issue of weight is definitely something to think about. And here are the issues that came up for me after I got my board. The first one is weather. I didn't expect this, but weather is a big deal in terms of electric skateboards. First, if it's super cold outside, you're not riding a bike and you're exercising. You're pretty much just standing on the board and the board is pushing you and you just have to maintain balance. So if it's really, really cold, it's pretty difficult to ride an electric skateboard. First, the range will decrease because, lithium-ion batteries don't perform that well when it's super cold, but also you yourself can't really handle the cold as much as riding on a bike. And the next thing is, if it's raining outside or if the ground is wet, you cannot ride your board, period. So first, if water gets in between your wheels and into your bearings, it can decrease the lifespan of the bearings. Second, there are a lot of metal parts on your board, so things can rust very quickly. Third, because the wheel of the board is very smooth, it can't handle water that well, so it can very, very easily skid on water. I've fallen on this board for about 3 times, and 2 of them are because I rode in the rain and my board slipped and I fell. And the next thing is the ground that you're riding on. Electric skateboards can only handle very smooth asphalt. So around my house, there are many streets that are concrete streets with little grooves in it. And when I ride my board through it, it's just super, super loud. And it destroys my board's range and it makes everyone around me super unpleasant because it's just so loud when I ride my board through it. And before getting the board, scout your area and find if there are any places that you can't ride your board through. This is really a big deal. Because of that, I can't ride in half of the streets in my city. Next, policy. This is pretty annoying to talk about because I just want to ride my board, honestly. But you run into a lot of policy issues with new electrical rideables such as the electric skateboard. If you've watched our vlogs before, you might know that we actually got caught with the electric skateboard before. The police officers that I met, they don't know how to handle the situation because these things are so new, they're not even in the traffic laws yet. And you're running to a lot of places where they say motorized vehicles are not allowed. Are these considered as motorized? I mean, there are skateboards which aren't motorized, but they also got a motor in it, so it's technically motorized. So you run into a lot of these kind of issues that you have to be aware of. This largely depends on your city and your country. So please, before you get an electric skateboard, look up the policies in your country and see if there are any bans on electric skateboards. The last concern I have after getting this board is carrying it sucks. Of course, it's heavy because the board is designed to carry you, not the other way around. But you'll run into issues where you have to carry the board. For example, in places where you're not allowed to ride, or when you get to the destination and you have to carry it in a mall to meet up with friends, or you're carrying it through the subway station. The solution to this problem is you get this thing called a hero clip. This is a secret life hack that not many people know. So a hero clip is a carabiner with a hook in the end. And then you basically just hook the carabiner to the bridge of your board and then you drag it with the back wheels. This works. It's like dragging a luggage case with you. So in summary, should you get an electric skateboard if you want to commute or if you want to just skate around for fun? The first thing to remember is the skateboard can handle it as long as weather permits. If it's not super cold or if it's not raining outside, the board can handle it just fine. The second thing to remember is an electric skateboard is just as practical as a bike, if not more practical. And it can go further, it can go faster than a bike, and it's more convenient to carry than comparing to locking up a bike. Third, getting an electric skateboard is partially on your end and partially on your city's end. Look up the policy in your city, and also if your city's weather permits it. I actually find that before I get an electric skateboard, my city was so dry that I thought there are no rain throughout the year. And after I got my board, I discovered that my city actually rains a lot. I just don't keep track of it as much. And lastly, I think this is actually the reason that we all want to ride an electric skateboard for commuting. It's that it can make commuting fun. After I got my board, every time that I get on it, I feel like I'm so free to do whatever I want. It turns commuting into a stress reliever, and this cannot be understated. Like, this is so important because commuting is usually boring and exhausting. You have to spend time on the road and you just end up looking at your phone all the time. Or you're super tired with your commuting that when you enter into your school or your office, you stink. Electric skateboards can make that a fun experience, and instead of wasting your time on the road, you can use it to have fun, which means that when you get to the destination, you're more prepared to do whatever you want to do instead of finding some kind of stress reliever and wasting your time even more. Anyways, if you want to watch more electric skateboard videos, we have vlogs about electric skateboards, me and Cathy riding it to all kinds of places. You can find that in our channels. Make sure to watch some of our other contents, subscribe, like, and bye.